Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to this episode of CultureCast. I'm Leah.
I'm Katie.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Rose.
Thanks, guys. Today we'll be talking about Fences. Fences is a loosely autobiographical comedic drama that was written by August Wilson in 1983. Set in the 1950s, it is the sixth work in August Wilson's Pittsburgh Cycle. And if you don't know about the Pittsburgh Cycle, it is a series of 10 plays that delineate African American experience throughout the 20th century, each reflecting a different decade. All but one of them is set in Pittsburgh's Hill District. The critically acclaimed Fences won the 1987 Pulitzer Prize for Drama and a total of 4 Tony Awards, including the award for Best Play in 1987. Along with being a critical success, Fences was also a commercial success. In its first year on Broadway, Fences brought in $11 million. This play, along with others in its category, helped to ease the transition from audiences being attracted to only popular musicals and comedies to audience acceptance of theater with a more serious tone. Fences sparked conversation about cultural, racial, and social issues that transcended just the theater world and branched out into the academic and artistic debates of the late 20th century.
August Wilson was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where many of his plays are set. Wilson was born to a white father and a black mother, which was very uncommon in this era. He was raised in the Hill District, also known as the ghetto for African Americans at this time. Wilson's father was very absent for the majority of his childhood, yet he was fortunate enough to have a strong-willed mother who moved them to a white suburb in hopes that he would have a better life there. Despite his mother's intentions, Wilson had experienced many injustices as a young child, and it was those that gave him a desire to be part of the Black Power movement in the 1960s. From there, Wilson helped found a theater in Pittsburgh and later in 1978 moved to Minnesota to write plays for a theater company. In 1982, he became a fellow in residence at Playwright Development Program at Eugene O'Neill Center in Connecticut. It was here that he met Lloyd Richards, who convinced him to produce plays. The two collaborated and their plays have thrived. Wilson has become a famous playwright who has won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, one for Fences in 1987 and another for The Piano Lesson in 1990. His works are rooted in naturalism with a touch of mystery and myth, and they attract many because his plays revolve around universal suffering and hope. Although much of his work speaks to African Americans, others can understand the suffering and hope that are intertwined throughout the work. Fences is set in Pittsburgh in the 1950s post-World War II. This was a time of suffering for Americans, yet also a time when blacks came together to try and achieve common dreams and goals. These goals were primarily the desegregation of swimming pools and various public places, as well as the push for fair housing laws and employment. The Urban League led efforts at this time as well to begin school segregation.
There are several parallels between Death of a Salesman and Fences. To begin with, in both plays we see the tension between a father and a son, where the son feels pressure to be like his dad because of his father's previous failures in life, which have made the father feel the need to push for his son to high levels. We see that ultimately there is no resolution for the conflict between the two men. Both Willie and Troy are unfaithful to their wives, yet their wives try hard to stay by their side and the side of their family. Both families struggle in their own way, but very similarly.
Troy Maxson, the main character, deals with a lot of struggle, and through the play we see that he has dealt with struggle since he was a child. His current character, however, struggles with parenting, as he has trouble adapting to new situations as society changes. He struggles with parenting because he tries to make sure his son does not have to go through the pain that he went through as a kid, yet at the same time he wants his son to be like him. Troy was very unfaithful to his wife and belittles her when he calls her woman and demands that she do certain things for him. He is rough and not very loving with Corey and knows struggle from several different shoes.
Rose Maxson is a mediator throughout the play, trying to keep the peace, especially between Corey and Troy. She has a humble dignity to her despite the type of person her husband has turned out to be, She is heroic for keeping her family glued together and staying so devoted to Troy and her family. Yet, despite her devotion and love for her family, and specifically her husband, she realizes that she deserves better than to be put down and cheated on by Troy, and when she finds out that Alberta is pregnant, she stands her grounds and tells Troy she's been loyal and deserves better. Corey, like Rose, is quiet and tries to obey his parents' rules, yet he hates how hypocritical his father is, and he is pressured to be like his father in a lot of ways, even though it seems like Troy is aiming for the opposite. On page 690, Troy proclaims to Rose about Corey, "I don't want him to be like me. I want him to move as far away from my life as he can get." Despite this statement, Corey wants to play sports and fulfill his dreams. His father doesn't want Corey to face the disappointment of being turned away because of the color of his skin, and even more than that, ridiculed. But Corey can't see that view of his father's.
Jim Bono is a good friend of Troy's who some may think suck up to him, but others could just view as loyal. He shows us that he can stand up for himself and let Troy know that he can't walk all over him. He also serves as a guide to Troy and his family in times of trouble. Gabriel, Troy's brother, who was injured in the war, believes he is the holy archangel Gabriel and likes to talk to saints and prepare for the Judgment Day, which comes into play at the end of the show. He is one of the few people who Troy does not get angry with and has even earned the respect of Troy and Rose. Lyons is Troy's oldest son, whom has no respect from his father. In his father's eyes, he is immature. His father thinks he is always asking for money and only comes around when he needs something.
Fences has a climactic plot that we see develop over 2 acts. Act 1 was very interesting in the way it set up conflicts for the rest of the play. Once the play starts, we quickly learn about Troy's life and everything that is wrong with it. He got a promotion at his job and became the first black truck driver in his place of business. We find out that he's having an affair with a woman named Alberta. Lastly, Troy destroys his son Corey's hopes of playing college football when he does not sign the papers to let him play. He did this out of fear that Corey would be discriminated against like Troy was in all of his baseball career. Act 2 shows conclusions to all these problems and eventually ruins Troy's life. When Alberta becomes pregnant and dies in labor, Rose agrees to take care of the child but refuses to stay with Troy. Not only has he lost his child, but both his partners as well. His job promotion and affair make his best friend Bono hate him, and this was where we finally saw the climax. Corey and Troy got into a fight with a baseball bat and Troy won. The end of the play is at Troy's funeral, where we see Corey show up in his military uniform and we can tell that he has finally put his father's past aside and made something of himself. The last line of the plays show Troy's brother opening the heavens as he dances to a ritual.
The most common themes in Fences revolve around race and coming of age within a cycle of damaged black manhood, hopes and the past, and dissatisfaction. The theme of race and being a male coming of age in the black community becomes most apparent in scene 4 of the play. This is the scene in which Bono and Troy remember their deceased fathers and their childhood experiences of becoming men when they decided to leave the South and move up north. Troy recounts a particularly painful memory from his childhood in which his interests in a girl sends his father into a jealous and devilish rage, ultimately prompting him to abuse the young girl and to beat Troy until he was knocked unconscious. Troy states that this was the moment in which he became a man. He was unwilling to live under the same roof as someone who could commit such hateful acts. Becoming a man meant separating from his father. Bono had different childhood experiences. His father was never around, and so, as Bono describes him, had something called the walking blues, a condition that prevented his father from staying in one place for very long and having many different female lovers along the way. Bono, unlike Troy, barely even recognized his father and didn't know a lot about him. He became a man having to raise himself without a father figure. Corey and Lyons grew up in different circumstances despite having the same father, but their transition from boys to men does not differ much from their father's experiences. Since Lyons grew up most of the time while Troy was in jail, he feels that he has the right to make his own decisions and pursue his own dreams, and Corey ends up leaving home after a fight with Troy in a way that was comparable to that in which Troy left his own father. To the two boys, becoming a man leaves Becoming a man means leaving behind the man that raised you. This creates a messy and confusing model for Troy and Corey to replicate. How do they identify themselves as grown men when the man they look up to has two distinctly different sides, a responsible, loyal side, as well as a hurtful and selfish one? Dissatisfaction is also another prevalent theme. In Fences, Troy is unhappy with not being able to advance how he wants to in his job. He is unhappy that his dreams to become a pro baseball player were shattered. And he also, although he loves his wife, is not satisfied with Rose and sought love in the arms of another woman. Ultimately, the takeaway message from this theme is that dissatisfaction can lead to behavior that can destroy a person's life if they let it.
A lot of the conflict in Fences emerges because the characters are stuck between generational differences in how they view the past and not knowing what to do in the future, which serves as another theme for the show. For example, Troy does not want Corey to be hurt and plagued with the rejection that he faced when he, an extremely talented baseball player, was bypassed because of his skin color. Corey, on the other hand, is convinced that times have changed and there is a chance that he could be successful playing professional football because its teams had been integrated for years, before baseball teams had been. This theme is most prevalent in Act 1, Scene 3, which we will perform an excerpt from.
Can I ask you a question?
What the hell you want to ask me? Mr. Wiki is the one you got the questions for.
How come you ain't never liked me?
Liked you. Who in the hell ever said, I got to like you? What law is there to say, I got to like you? Do you want to stand up in my face and ask me some damn fool-ass question like that? Talking about liking somebody. Come here, boy, when I talk to you. Straighten up, goddammit. Ask you a question. What law is there to say, I got to like you?
None.
All right, then. Don't you eat every day? Answer me when I talk to you. Don't you eat every day?
Yeah.
Nigga, as long as you living in my house, you put a sir on the end of it when you talk to me.
Yes, sir.
You eat every day.
Yes, sir.
Got a roof over your head.
Yes, sir.
And clothes on your back.
Yes, sir.
Why do you think that is?
Because of you.
Hell, I know it's because of me. Why do you think that is?
Because you like me.
Like you. I go out of here every morning and bust my butt putting up with them crackers all day long because I like you. You is the biggest fool I ever saw. It is my job. It is my responsibility. You understand that? A man got to take care of his family. You live in my house. You sleep your behind on my bedclothes. You put my food in your belly because you are my son. You are my flesh and blood, not because I like you. It is my duty to take care of you. I owe a responsibility to you. Wait now. Let's get this straight right now. We'll go along any further. I ain't got to like you. Mr. Rand, don't give me my money come payday because he liked me. He give me because he owe me. Now, I done give you everything I had to give you. I gave you your life. Your mama and me worked it out between us. And liking your black ass was not a part of the bargain, and don't you try and go through life worried if somebody like you or not. You best make sure that they are doing right by you. You understand what I'm saying, boy?
Yes, sir.
Then you get the hell out of my face and go on down under A&P.
Time you see the real conflict between Troy and Corey come to a head. Troy does not see that Corey is being responsible about his job of securing it after football season, or that he is getting good grades in school. He chooses to only see how Corey is disappointing him by not living his life the way Troy wants him to. It is interesting to see that when the two are discussing buying the television, Troy comes to a compromise and promises to pay half of the price if Corey can manage to come up with the other half. However, when the conversation moves to sports, a more sensitive topic, Troy gets defensive, cruel, and stern. Corey sees the present for what it really is, a changing, progressive society. But Troy refuses to let go of the past and cannot accept this fact as true.
two main symbols that we see in fences are trains and fences. In fences, trains symbolize the approach and arrival of great change in the character's life. Throughout the time of slavery and the Harlem Renaissance, trains were often used in literature and in music. We can see this in the song that Troy sings to his illegitimate child, Raynell. The lyrics read, "Please, Mr. Engineer, let a man ride the line," by choosing this song, desperate for Rose to take him back. In the song, the man is pleading for a ride on the train, something that he may need to survive, and Troy is doing the same thing. Without his wife, he sees no future for himself.
Fences serve as a symbol because the dramatic action of the play depends strongly on the building of a fence in the Maxons' backyard. The characters in the show grow and develop around the building of a fence, which in turn serves as a literal and figurative device, representing how relationships between the characters bond and break over the course of the show. Each character's outlook on the fence is a symbol of their outlook on other things. For example, Rose's support of the fence represents her love and desire to keep her family close to her. Troy and Corey, on the other hand, think that the fence is unnecessary and reluctantly work on it, which further enforces both men's desire to leave the lives they knew. Bono agrees that to some people, fences aren't seen as a way of keeping people in, but rather pushing people away and keeping them out, and he accuses Troy of pushing away Rose by being unfaithful to her. Troy's decision to stop building the fence parallels his lack of commitment to his marriage. In the final scene after Troy dies, and the family reunites, the fence is only then seen as finished. The fence symbolizes the strength of the family and how, despite being torn apart, they were brought back together. Thank you for joining us on this episode of CultureCast. We hope you enjoyed our presentation of Fences by August Wilson. Bye!